Finding yourself lost in finding ways to be found, getting into your mind, lost in. I've noticed this, like Florida and Texas are becoming the two states here in the US where it's just pure freedom. I mean, there's no like oppression of your thoughts and emotions. Like, I myself have different beliefs. I'm an open minded thinker and I like hearing different perspectives. I'm from New York. If I try to have open and different perspectives in New York, I'm going to be in the fucking ER with 3 surgeries, a giant suture on my face, and just like a broken leg. Because, you know, knowing New York culture, if you try to do that with New York, just giving you an example, Kevin.
Please.
If you go up to a New Yorker, right? Let's say you're at a party, you're having a good time, okay? It's 12:30 at night, and you notice your buddy of yours, he's having, you know, he's drunk and he's all over the place, right? If you try to go and help him, he not only he will beat the fuck out of you, his team of friends will beat the fuck out of you. It's like, in a way of a disrespect. It's like, what the fuck? I have friends that will take care of me. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, what are you missing meddling in my business? That's the type of mentality I grew up with. So coming out here and experiencing Florida, and people are like, what the fuck? Whatever. You sure? Like, it's okay? Yeah, cool. Oh, okay. Just completely 180 degrees different experience with people, mentality, and you don't find that very often here in this country.
That's fair. My wife and I were in Vermont recently, and I love Vermont, and Vermont I feel is a very inclusive place. And I've always enjoyed that very much about Vermont, is it feels like a safe place for people to be themselves.
Mountain people. That's what you call them. They're mountain people.
I'm a big fan. I love it. I love the nature. I love the views. It's a different speed of life for sure.
Well, it's especially when you go to New England. And, you know, people are like, oh, Massachusetts is very contested. I'm not talking about Massachusetts and Connecticut. Listen, if you have over $5 million in your bank account, we'll have a conversation about Massachusetts and Connecticut. But realistically speaking, like as a New Yorker or somebody like living out in the Northeast, traveling to like Vermont or New Hampshire or Maine for skiing, hiking, you know, believe it or not, they have dune buggying. I don't know if you know this. In New Hampshire, they have dune buggying. They have racing out there.
I live in New Hampshire. Yeah,
I live in New Hampshire. You know what I'm talking about, bro. Yeah, they got dune buggying. They've got mud rides, mud sluds, all of the shit. And it's a lot of fun if you've never gone like outdoor roading in a Jeep Cherokee JK.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I go on a lot of other shows, and when I go, they're like, oh, New Hampshire, that must be awesome. And it's like, it's a nice place, and there's a lot of mountains, but there's cities too. It's not, I don't know. I don't think it's that much different than a lot of other places I've traveled to. I think it just has an allure to it if you've never been.
It's just it's a different culture. You have to remember the type of people that are there. You know, one thing we were talking about before, which you discuss a lot on your podcast, is all about perspective and visualization, realization. People are raised and develop the way that they are because of the environments that they're in. You know, you take somebody that's from Michigan and you take somebody from California, they're going to have 2 different lives, 2 different experiences. I mean, they may not even understand things. I know this because my best friend is from Iowa. There's a lot of things we do not see eye in eye at all. We argue and conflict because we have very different backgrounds, very different ways of understanding things.
Yeah. Well, perspective comes from, that's the thing about perspective is between where you are and another point, and where you are is always going to affect the perspective. So my perspective that I see you through the camera would be drastically different if I was standing on your left side. So it's a different perspective.
So let me ask you this question.
Please.
Why do we then have this philosophy and belief in this country of a two thought process? Either you either think like a liberal or you think like a conservative. There's
Mhm.
no in between. You cannot be either side. You choose your side.
Yeah.
I don't believe in this philosophy. I'm both liberal and conservative.
Yeah. Same. I don't like politics at all. I don't like thinking that you have to be that there can't be any duality. That I can't decide like I just want what's best for people. I don't know. Whatever that is, that's what I am. I want people to have the ability to be themselves but I don't know. It's a great question. I think it's because that's the way it's always been and we haven't figured out how to move away from that yet. Maybe there hasn't been enough necessity, maybe the right person hasn't brought it up. If you think about changes are usually made pro reactively after some sort of tragedy. If you think about it, we don't fix cars before they crash. Usually they crash and then we say, "Oh, we should probably throw some seatbelts in these bad Larrys." A very tragic event, but 9/11. Air travel was drastically different before 9/11.
I don't rem-
Drastically.
I remember what happened after 9/11. I remember this is crazy. Very few because I was born in 99. So I'm at
Right.
the very cusp. We're in the early 2000s when we went to the airport, let's say domestic flight, because that's what we were doing. We went to Florida. And
Yeah.
at the beginning, you weren't allowed to bring any sharp objects. I remember this. They had a big sign at the front. When
Mhm.
they first introduced the TSA, I remember this. They used to have a person. This was very weird. They had what's called a TSA greeter. So it was always a person at the front that would introduce themselves and say, "Hey, welcome to the airport. Which flight are you going on?" And they say, "Okay, if you're going to domestic, please go to this line." They're going to tell you. We were very new to this. None of us ever experienced anything. My mom would freak out. And then as the years went on, it went from no sharp objects to no batteries, no liquids. It just got crazier and I saw it got crazier. People now are like, "Oh, it's just the TSA." I remember when it was just simple, when they had no idea what they were doing, that they were just adding shit in there to make people feel, feel safer about themselves.
Mm.
That's very fucked up. That I
Mm.
can remember that, and most people can't. You
Yeah.
probably can remember that too.
I'm 34, so I got a decade on you.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's just an example of how that's just a mechanism of necessity. Really,
It's
it's just
fear, though. It's a fear tactic. It's a way of where people get afraid. You mentioned these events. This is the thing about these events. It's
Mhm.
also not only just about trauma, but it's also about the fear that some, unfortunately, can be used to manipulate people's way of thinking and make
Mhm.
them feel, I'm going to do quotations. You can't see this if you're listening, safer.
Mm. Yeah. Do you think it actually does make people safer though?
No.
In what way?
I think that when it comes to for example, for traveling, especially with, you want to talk about with domestic travel, I think there should be some logistics and rationality that comes into, okay, so let's be realistic. If somebody comes on a plane, all right, and they're carrying an AK-47, you're not going to let them on the plane.
Of course.
There's no license and no paperwork or anything, right? Now, if you have somebody that comes onto the plane and looks suspicious, okay, and happens to be a scientist, okay, that works with different types of plants, whether they be legal or illegal in some countries. So some of these scientists have to take samples with them when they're flying.
Mm.
I'm giving these bizarre examples for a very simple reason. When you're trying to protect people that are getting on planes, enforcing the same rules on every single person equally is stupid.
Interesting.
The same way enforcing the same laws on, driving or care for people is stupid.
Mm.
Because we're all different. We're
My
all, yeah, I'm
I don't
sorry.
want to say argument. No, 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 you're good. You're good. My debate to that would be the level of the stakes when you're 35,000 feet in the air are drastically different than almost any other time.
Correct.
So I think, and again, I'm terrified of flying. So for me, it's like, hey, you want to pat me down? You want whatever. You let me know what you need to do. I'm all for it. My wife and I are going to Belgium in 2 weeks, and I'm terrified. I don't want to get on that plane. I don't want to fly across the ocean. There's sharks and shit in there. That's the last thing I want to do.
Right now, it is the safest time in history to fly a plane. If we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
it is the safest. I feel safe going through the TSA right now because I feel like, especially now with how things are, we're at a point where they've kind of figured it out. But it's kind of pathetic that it took them over 20 years to do it.
I wonder if you'll have that perspective in 10 years. I really do. Just because it's probably a lot harder than most people think. I think everything is.
That's the point, though, is when we talk about progress, because what's the number one thing, especially with life coaches and mentors, the number one thing is progress, right? We're progressive. We're moving to the next frontier. Half the time it's all bullshit, right?
Sure.
You have to keep things realistic. In a real world scenario, things take time. People take time. Progress takes a very, very long time. I agree with you 100%. My perspective on this probably in 10 years is going to probably be a lot different than it is right now. But that's okay. This is my perspective right now.
Of course.
But just understanding, the Hollywood, the unrealistic aspect to what actually happens in real life, I think that is the key.
Can you go deeper? It's one of my favorite questions in the world.
Honey, you're asking a stone person to go deeper. Got to be very careful.
This is what I signed up for. I'm ready.
Shit. So the way to look at it is like this. We live in an age that has existed for about 120 to about 150 years. Okay? And in that time frame, we've had advancement in technology, life experience, safety. We have access to things that we've dreamed about. People dreamed about 60 or 70 years ago. What happens is you create now these expectations for people that has a negative effect and can be quite damaging and can cause more problems than actual gain. One example is this incredible thing. It's called a smartphone. Now, this is a great tool. It's a way for us to communicate. We're able to do the podcast because of this smartphone. I'm able to get to work. I'm able to listen to music. I'm able to do research listening to your podcast and other artists. But there's a con with this. What's inside of this? Cobalt, raw earth materials that right now slaves in the Congo, tens to, I think, over 13,000 with babies on their backs are shoveling that cobalt to make this phone. And you're like, well, who cares? But again, remember what I said about progress. Progress is slow. It takes time. But the thing about progress is sometimes, like we said earlier, it happens because of horrible things.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I read a book. I don't remember the name of the book.
Damn, that was really deep. Shit.
It was super deep. The book, I believe it was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And in this book, they were talking about something very similar, where they were talking about how Apple gets a lot of its products made. And it wasn't that exact example of the cobalt mines, but they were kind of trying to set up where you have to get the perspective of the worker. And the worker in this case said, you don't understand. Yeah, it might not be ideal conditions. Yeah, it might be terrible conditions compared to what you're used to working in. But the other options I have are actually worse than this. Again, I don't know. I've never interviewed anybody who's worked on the technology or harvested the raw materials. But it's an interesting perspective to at least hear, I guess. You know?
They don't want to come to the realization of making it here in the US. I'm going to sound like a Ronnie Ton patriotic American right now, and it's okay. I really believe that if we built cars in America, if we built our technology and chips, trust me, there are a lot of really smart fucking people here in this country that can make really great microchips and nanoboards and processors. How do I know this? My brother owns a company. It's called Max Tippums. He makes computer modules for Chrysler vehicles,
Mm.
and his team, like, they're from all different places, but they're all here in America, building things here in America, doing their craft. It's just like great to support another country, but we've got a homeless crisis here.
Mm.
We've got a financial crisis here. Like, there are plenty of people that would love to do that for a living.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we don't make enough profit. Who gives a fuck? But they care about that. That's the issue. And that's the hurdle you just can't get over.
Yeah, but in order to make something sustainable, it has to be a certain level of profitable. Would you agree with that?
Correct, but who creates the line for profitable? Remember, somebody
Fair.
drew the line of where the margin is supposed to be.
Fair. But I will tell you, knowing as many business owners as I do, many people draw the line of profitability or the margin of profitability closer to necessity than you might think.
Yes.
Now, not everybody, right? There's some companies that are making incredible amounts of money in very, very high margins. They could definitely lower prices, but I'm sure, that's probably they're probably more the rule than the exception, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's generally the case, I feel. It's just, look, I'm not, all for it. My biggest issue over here is, keep in mind, China is a communist country. And the way that the Chinese government treats its people is atrocious. I mean, it's awful. I've known people. I knew somebody that was from China, and she had family that's still stuck there. And it's just one of those things where, why do you want to support that? I get cheaper margins, but is there a way of us being able to give products to customers that we can honestly say, no slavery, no forced labor, no harm went into this? The workers that were making these products were in safe environments, they had livable wages, and they were able to have a good life. I don't think that's such a hard thing to ask. I understand that there's necessity and profits to keep in mind, but we're all in this together, right? It's not just one person that's running the show.
Yeah. Do you think the beginning issue is awareness? My wife and I watched this documentary a couple of years back about chocolate. And everybody thinks chocolate's like, oh, it's amazing. It's this chocolate bar. You get to eat it. It's sweet. But then when you look into how it's made, it's very similar, where there's people who are pretty much slaves to the farming of cocoa beans and making the chocolate. I never knew that until I watched a documentary that was created by somebody who was just far more aware than I was on the facts of that. Now I'm aware. And we literally that day, we went on the website that was given in the documentary and tried to buy chocolate from this small farmer in somewhere in Africa. I don't remember the exact place. But do you think it's an awareness thing where you can't really do better? I don't want to say you can't. It's very hard to do better until you realize you can.
I think this is just, if you want a real world example, go to any grocery store. If you go to a grocery store and I ask you, can you pick out at least one product that at this entire Publix, Winnie Dixie, Kroger's, Stop and Shop, you name it, one product out of that store you can guarantee me is just one thing. You know what it is. What's that one thing that comes to mind?
I don't know if anything comes to mind, really.
Water.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Water's
Okay.
like the number one thing, you go to a grocery store, right? Okay, it's water.
Hmm.
What else could possibly be in there? We know that milk is full of crap. We know butter's full of crap, and they've scientifically engineered that stuff here in the US. I read an entire article, and that was a moment in my life. But then you have to realize they put shit in our water too.
Hmm.
So if you go into a grocery store, and this is just an honest realization, nothing in that store that you're going to buy hasn't been touched or genetically modified or been made in a lab
Hmm.
in some shape or form. Every single product that is in that store.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
So I've spoken to people that are chemists and botanists and work in this industry. So there's two ways you can look at it is like this. It's always great to have a farm that's able to rejuvenate itself. It's great to get products that are, straight from the land, so you know exactly where it's coming from. But here's the reality. A lot of the science that's going in, so even with animals, so some of these farmers that are making these better farms that
Hmm.
rejuvenate with the cows eating the grass and so on, they'll do things with the cows, certain medications, certain proteins and things to add, natural things, to add in vitamins and minerals for their cows. So that's different, right? It's still scientifically
Hmm.
engineered and modified, but it's done in a more eco and environmental and friendly way. It's going back into nature. So I always talk about this. It's like Alice in the Looking Glass. It's the two sides of the mirror. There's always going to be that negative and there's always going to be that positive. But
Hmm.
it's looking at both of them and saying, okay, that makes sense, right? I can understand where this person's coming from as well. Each one basically answers to itself.
Yeah. It's so it's a weird it's such a weird time too, because anybody can put anything online, and if you get enough momentum, people start to believe it. And like, I can name, I mean, there's a lot of, I follow a lot of fitness accounts. I'm very into fitness. I'm
Okay.
into bodybuilding, and I can name 5 off the top of my head that are just blatantly wrong scientifically, but it doesn't matter, because when people follow them, they just stay following them, even though there is no data to prove pretty much anything they're talking about.
I have a question for you, and
Please.
I think you're the perfect person to ask this. What is your thoughts on AG1?
I don't know. What is it? I don't know what it is.
It's supplement, a vitamin supplement.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you take supplements in the morning?
The only thing I take is creatine. I take a multivitamin, and I take glucosamine. Those are the only 3 things.
What company do you use for your multivitamin?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Nature's Remedy, maybe? I don't know.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you this question is because one of the things that I'm a little iffy of is there's a lot of, supplements and multivitamins and all of this. And you remember how years ago there was the whole bullshit with the CBD?
Mhm.
I've had people in the cannabis industry, and I have a pretty good gist on it. So I kind of feel it's the same round. It's just this time it's with supplements.
Fair. Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, creatine is, if you're going to use a supplement, creatine is one of the most researched supplements
Yeah.
ever,
Hmm.
and it has very positive benefits. If somebody was going to give you like a list of what to use, they would, and they know what they're talking about, and you don't have any different medical things going on, they would probably stop after creatine, because it's the most studied and it has actual benefits. Everything else, like if you're buying a testosterone booster over the counter, it's not going to do anything most likely.
No.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But here's the thing: when the barrier to entry gets lower, the opportunity for fuckery gets higher. So
Shit.
anybody can make their own supplements now. You could order all you need online, and you could put them in capsules, and you could name it Lost in the Groove Nutrition. and you could sell it. You could sell it.
Yeah.
And I don't know the legality of it, but it doesn't have to be regulated by the FDA. You just throw that on the label, not evaluated by the FDA, and you can have your own supplement brand. This is what happens. Influencers, people who have influence, they realize there's a lot of money to be made here. If I can just say this is what I use and this is what helped me get in the shape I'm in, let me do that. So yeah, the barrier to entry. And podcasting is a really good example. The lower the barrier to entry, the higher the failure rate. Because you don't have to have as much skin in the game to start. It's easy to start a podcast. It's not hard anymore. It's hard to
Right.
keep going. But I think that's a mechanism of course, it's hard to keep going. It's super easy to start. Anybody in the civilized world, anybody who has access to it can go sign up to the gym. It's not hard. Staying in the gym is hard. The barrier to entry, this is why Planet Fitness's business model is to have extremely low prices so they can charge you forever and you'll never cancel. I believe the stat is 80% of people who have a gym membership to Planet Fitness have gone once. That's their business model, is make the price so low that you don't even care about not going. But the barrier to entry is really low. The failure rate is really high.
That's really bananas. So they don't really even care about having people in the gym. They just, wow.
Not really. Yeah, not really. I knew a manager once, and that the stat he gave me, I think, was 75%. But if you Google it, that's one of the reasons that they do things the way they do. I mean, if you can sign up to something for $1, there's not a lot of skin in the game, right? So think about it this way. If I had to pay you, say I had to pay you $500 to be on your show, you better believe I'd be early. I would never be late. My technology would always work. If there was skin in the game, I would never miss it. But if it's not, I mean, people cancel on me and no-show me all the time. It's just kind of how it is. There's no money in the game.
Yeah, I know. It's so fun. It's podcasting life. It's just so hilarious when you watch like the big podcasters. Oh my God. And when they talk about getting guests on, literally, this is always the response. And I'm just like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, you know, I take care of it, or I have somebody that takes care of it. You know, it's not that simple. Okay, we both do this, right? We both do this. Yeah. No.
It is when you get bigger. I mean, we're not at the point yet, but I know people who are very big in our industry, and they can pretty much get anyone they want just based on the size of their audience. So eventually, but we're talking millions of subscribers.
Okay, the problem is the people that I want on my podcast, they're dead.
Well, that is an issue.
I wanted David Bowie on my podcast, but he's dead. I wanted Freddie Mercury on the podcast, but he's also dead. And if I keep up and I try to get Alice Cooper, he's probably going to be.
Don't put that out there. Don't put that out there.
No. He's got a good 20, 30 years. Oh, that man, trust me. Him and Mick Jagger are going to be on the top of the golden podium in 2065 when they launch the spacecraft by Elon Musk that sends his first child to the Mars colony. I'm not joking. Yeah, like Mick Jagger will be like, to Mars.
Who else? Who are your other dream guests?
John Lennon, George Harrison, Jim Croce.
Who's Jim Croce?
You've never heard of Jim Croce?
I've never heard of Jim Croce, no.
So
I know it's a sin.
No, it's okay. It's cool. Jim Croce was a blues and country singer. He had a really interesting sound. He was a storyteller guitarist. So he had a song about a fat roly derby queen. He had a song about crossing Georgia. So he could take a car, but he chose to walk. Like, he loved to be very creative and kind of stupid and silly. So the saddest part was he died in 1973 on the way to a benefit for kids in a plane crash at the peak of his career. And that was it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Music is obviously very big to you.
Yeah, I'm a musician. I mean, I'm not a great musician. I play guitar. I've always loved music. Music has always been kind of an escape. It's Great way, no pun intended, to get lost in the groove.
I dig it. I'm have you ever met somebody who doesn't like music?
Yes.
I've never have. That was supposed to be a rhetorical question. What was that like? And not judgment, not from a judgmental place, but I don't know if I've ever met anybody who didn't have some affinity for music.
I never understood it. I mean, he was my teacher, so I just assumed that, it is what it is. I always thought it was weird.
Mm.
It was a teacher I had in elementary school.
I feel like it's such a human experience. Like I can't imagine not getting moved by. I was couple weekends ago. I myself, I smoked a joint, and
Indeed. Mm.
I had to clean out the coffee maker. I left a mess. I had to clean out the coffee maker. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna listen to some tunes. And I was watching Mac Miller perform live on NPR, the Tiny Desk. And it was just like, I can't clean anymore. I need to sit down and I need to watch this whole thing. And it was just beautiful. It was a transcendent experience, is the best way to put it. When you hear a good song and it hits right and it's the right mood and you're in the right headspace, it does things to you. It just does things to you.
For me, it was last night driving home at 11:35. I have a convertible Mustang. It's 2011. It's white, going 75 on the highway, and Crossroads Traffic by Jimi Hendrix is playing. Okay? I totally get that. Like music, motions, vibes, like right setting, you can't do anything except just
It's presence. It's presence. What kind of if I said what's your brand of the music that you write, what would you say?
I write indie, kind of late 90s, 80s, soft rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who would you compare it to?
So my vocal range, I mean, I don't know what I sound. I think I know what I sound like, but when I sing, I have a bit of Billy Idol, David Bowie, and Elvis Presley.
Okay.
So if you kind of put those together and you grain it about 29.6, that's how I sound.
It's quite a mix.
Yeah.
Quite a mix. Do you find that you have to be inspired to write, or do you sit down to write and then become inspired through action?
It's very interesting because I'm currently working on. I have two songs that I've been currently working on. One is called Human Being, and the other one is called Cindy. And Cindy, I started working on about 2 years ago. And Human Being came out of when I had my breakdown last year. I work a corporate job, and it sometimes it's very stressful. And it was kind of a breakdown, but I'm very slow with making songs because I don't really play guitar very often, and when I do, I have to like be in the motions or vibes. It many ways it's like telling a story chapter by chapter.
Nice. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I do a little writing myself, so
Ooh.
that's why I asked the question.
Poems? What kind of writing
I
you do?
rap.
Ooh. What
Yeah,
type of rap?
that's a great question. Usually like dark, sad, heartbroken. My wife said, "How
Oh,
come you never write any songs about me?" And I said, "Because I'm not suffering. It's very
shit.
hard for me to write when I'm not suffering. I have to,
Shit.
you know what I mean? There's like a weight for me of like when life really hits me, it's like, okay, I can express, but when things are going really well, it's hard to sit down and come up with something for me."
I don't know why. It just I'm getting the Beastie Boys, and I'm getting I think it's Polly's Boutique, which I think is one of my favorite albums. Oh, I'm sorry. You brought up rap, and I don't know why it's just like
It's all
Beastie
good.
Boys, and I'm just like in my head right now.
It's all good. That's music.
There's something I've had rappers on the podcast before, and rap is in many ways a form of poetry. It's a genre of poetry. Ooh, I'm being fancy. Uh, but there's different ways of going about it. When you take gangster rap, people's like, oh, that's just filthy. If you take like Nas or like, even, I'm dead serious, take even MC Hammer,
Mm.
okay? And you take like Salt and Pepper and you just throw that on a fucking playlist and just shuffle them, you'll hear like a story by story,
Yeah.
person by person, city by city. It's what you want to look at. It's not what you want to take after.
The storytelling aspect of it, I think, is second to none. You can tell a good story in a rock song or whatever else it is, but in rap, it's different. It's different, and there's nothing quite like landing on the beat the way you have to as a rapper. I enjoy that. Like the art of the syllable is drastically different when you're writing a song from a rap perspective. But I've never written one any other way, so I wouldn't know. Like if you and I sat down in the studio and you said, all right, we're going to write a rock song, I don't even know if I would know where to start.
I think I know where we would start.
What would happen? What would it be? Put you on the spot.
Shit. See, like right now, okay, this is what I always tell people. When I am high, my brain is an equivalent to a 1998 iMac, okay, with an Ethernet plugged in the back, okay? I got the CD-ROM in there. Just give me a sec. It's just gotta load. First thing that came to my mind is Subway. I was thinking of the A train in Far Rockaway. Late night, few friends, a few drinks, cold setting. That's all I got so far.
Okay. That's more than I would have had. Usually I can tell when I hear the beat. When I hear a beat, it's like, all right, cool. This is usually something will pop in. Like you press play, you blank canvas, open dock, headphones in, bass turned up. You hit a button, you let it play, and then it's like, you just kind of see what happens.
I am not beatboxing on this podcast. I love
man. We'll save that for another time. You and I can do it we can do it behind the scenes.
When I get like 18 or like 29 lessons, it's like, okay, so it's like.
One of my buddies was a really good. He went to one of his roommates was a rapper. Two of his roommates were rappers.
Ooh,
and he was a really good
beatboxer. Yeah,
he was really good.
With
really
like
good.
like the hand moves and
bro. He was really good to the point where I completely forgot about that. Maybe I'll have to next time I see him, I'll have to get him to do it for me.
Oh my God, like bring back memories, and vibes like, bro, like the good old days. Come on, like good old days.
Well, you're not at the age yet where there's a lot of people who like really like music, but it dies or it like practicing it. I'm a 34-year-old podcaster who loves rapping in mixed martial arts and my cats. I'm the ultimate cat dad. I'll go toe to toe with anybody on the planet.
Oh, I have a cat too. Her name's Twix. Named after the candy bar. Yes.
I respect it. Okay, yeah. See, you have me beat. So that's my next one. I'm getting them on my hand. So we have two. We have
bro. It's the move.
Fudge and
Ace.
Ace.
Oh my God, that's adorable. Oh my God, they're so cute. My baby's outside tanning. She suntans. She lays in the spot where the sun lays, and she just.
I respect it.
Yeah, it's so cute. I love my fur baby. You probably love your fur babies too. They're so cute.
More than anything. Not more than anything. I love my wife, but this is dark. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. I'm sitting at my desk right now. So I have a desk. You just can't see it. That's where the mic arm's connected to.
It's an invisible desk, people. Okay.
It's an invisible desk.
Okay.
Every morning I get up. I usually go to the gym 5:30, 6. I come back and I come to the office. I start working. And Fudge, the black cat, he jumps up on the desk and gives me headbutts every day. He has to give me headbutts on the desk. That's his thing. And I used to get really frustrated. I used to say, come on, dude, I'm trying to type. You're stepping all over my keyboard. You're messing up my WhatsApp messages. It's a whole thing. Then I had this moment where I realized that one day he's going to die. And I am going to regret every single time I didn't give him head pets. I didn't let him headbutt me. And that changed my perspective on everything. Nothing is forever. Everything is temporary. If you want to reverse engineer regret and not have, I won't say not have less regrets in the future, understand what you're going to regret in advance and then do something about it.
I totally agree. The thing about with Twix was, she's a cat, but I got her when she was very little, and the weird thing about her, she's very much like a dog.
Mm.
She like wags her tail, you could throw balls, she goes running after it. She loves going on walks. I'm dead serious, like she goes on a leash.
Mm.
And the thing that I had such a hard time is like, oh my God, why is she like this as a cat? Why is she doing this as a cat? And this year I finally came to realization. I remember one night just like looking at her. And I was like, you're just Twix. She's just, that's what she is.
Mm.
You learn to realize like, oh my God, your time is so short. Like, this is her character, like this is what makes her special. And I hate to say this too, like the same thing with a partner. When you describe your wife or your partner or girlfriend or whatever, or boyfriend, you're describing like that part of you, like, yeah, like they're my,
Mm.
they're part of me.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that I'm learning this now. I feel that animals are the greatest example of teaching us compassion.
Yeah, that's deep. And I would agree. They can't say anything to you, and you never really know how they're feeling. I mean, you kind of do, depending
You
on their
kind of
actions.
do. Yeah. I know how she's feeling.
But maybe that really is. I mean, one of our cats is super brave, doesn't care about anything, doesn't matter. The other one, Fudge, when people come over, he runs and hides under the bed. He's terrified of people, but there's certain people he likes. It's for me now, it's the understanding of, okay, let me leave the door open for you so you can hide. I know I want you not to hide. I'd love for you to be the cat who jumps up in front of everybody and loves everybody, but that's just not who you are. You're afraid. It is what it is. Let me protect you.
You have to be able to embrace it.
Cat talk.
Yeah. It's so weird having these this kind of conversation with somebody that doesn't have a pet. And I'm not trying to exclude people. It's just it's the same way it's very hard to have a conversation about having a wife with somebody that's never been married.
Mm.
There's a certain added layer to us as humans that when we have this a part of our life, something changes in our thinking.
Yeah.
There's like a switch that turns on.
Podcasting too. I think it's
Yeah.
really hard to empathize. Not that you don't desire to empathize, but it's really hard to accurately empathize with something you've never experienced. You can imagine. One of the things I say all the time is I understand to the level I understand. I don't know what it's like to be a single mom. I don't know what it's like to ever birth a child. I've never experienced that. So I understand to the level I can understand, but doesn't that
Right.
also mean I can only empathize to the level I understand? I don't know. That's more of a philosophical question.
You know what? We did I always talk about this, but it's such a great episode. We did an episode on Harvey Milk last year. And we did me and Carissa, we did a lot of research and stuff. And one of the takeaways was, you know what his whole campaign was about? He's like, take away religion, take away sex, and take away like beliefs. What do you need?
Hmm.
We want a safe community. We want our kids to have good schools. We want to have good businesses. Take away everything. Everybody wants pretty much the same things. We want a good home, a safe environment, a safe place to be.
Yeah.
It's just strange and how, again, awareness and, I never thought about it like that before.
I think awareness is everything. Awareness is an opportunity. Not everything. It's an opportunity. The more aware you are, the more opportunity you have to facilitate change, if you so choose.
Indeed. It's like,
If you
do you
choose.
want the red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah, it's an awareness. But the thing about something like that is it's only as powerful as your understanding. So if somebody said it's just red or blue, okay, what's the difference? I don't know. One does something, the other does something else. It's like, okay, positive or negative? Don't know. No clue. Could be anything. One might turn you into an ostrich and the other might turn you into a cheeseburger. I have no idea. It's like, okay, well, if the awareness isn't there, the opportunity is not there either. So
Okay, here's a deeper thought, okay?
let's do it.
Imagine where you're given a choice of two blue pills, but one is secretly a red pill.
Mm.
Now, they look identical. They're shiny. You rub it, it doesn't come off. I mean, they look the same. There's no way of seeing the difference. Now, the red pill will kill you instantly. The blue pill won't.
Mm.
You see how much more difficult that situation now became?
It's definitely. Do I have to take one, or can I choose not to?
Okay. Current president, next presidency, you do some real bad shit, you know? Like maybe like go to like Nancy Pelosi, you know, like steal her skirt or something, you know,
Go
like
ahead.
run around and like post it on TikTok. And then they're like, shit, we got to do something about this guy because like we got to keep Nancy in there for like a little bit longer. And they like lock him up, you know? They're like, okay, take these fucking pills. Like, wait, I don't know which one. That's the point. This is so stupid, but
So I'd
there
have
you
to take
go.
one.
That's your scenario.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? I guess
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I would last very long in jail. I got to be honest. I've always tried to keep it real with that. Like I have trained fighting and I've trained martial arts and I'm pretty disciplined and I'm pretty strong mindset. I don't know if I would last a week in jail. So I would probably take, if you said like you're in jail for 50 years, I'd say just give me one, just give me a pill, whatever. I mean, either way, it's either
That
going to
was
be
the,
really good or really bad.
if that was the choice. Yeah.
50 years is a long time.
I don't, you know, that's also the issue where when you put somebody in a prison here in the US, you know, we're not talking about a jail. We're talking about prison. That's it. Like you better call up your, that's seriously, you got to call up your mortuary, you know, get your gravestone ready and get your coffin. Like, not to be a negative Nancy, but reality is this: you go into a prison, you ain't a Nazi, you ain't a whitey, you ain't one of the black gangs or, you know, the Mexican gang. They will murder you.
Mm.
They'll come in with razor blades while you're sleeping. Garbage bag. Bye.
It's so scary. It's so scary. It's heavy.
Yeah. Again, that's what I was saying earlier. You know, it can be all about profits, which is what the prison system here in the United States is.
Yeah.
But again, doesn't have to necessarily be about profits.
Yeah. And I agree with that too. I'm in agreement with you. I was just trying to give a different perspective. We went to an event. It was a business building event. And the first thing the person said was business is about making money. That is a fundamental misconception that's not true. Business is about facilitating impact. If you facilitate impact, you get paid in proportion to the impact you have.
Correct.
So that's more my belief anyway. But I was just trying to throw a different perspective out to see where the conversation would go.
No, and I love that. And I remember I was talking with Carissa a few weeks ago when we had this conversation. You know, take podcasting, for example. I've been doing this for about 2 years, and I haven't really made that much money off the podcast. Now, here's the thing, though. Podcasting is the complete opposite. In order to be a successful podcaster, you have to be a good podcaster. Otherwise, nobody's going to listen to you. Like, that's just plain and simple. So if you're able to build that momentum, be able to build that audience like you've done yourself, and you have a really good show, and you have a really good co-host, and you got a great flow going. And best part, yes, it's deep and heavy. It's gone on us straight to the truth. So doing that can lead to monetary value because you can approach companies, or companies can approach you, or people can approach you, or businesses. And there's an equal gain and opportunity. Again, it's not necessarily about profits, but it's about equal exchange where I can help you, but give me a little skin, you know? Give me a little fly.
Well, then there's the deeper layer of we have never made $1 from sponsorships or ads. We don't monetize that way. We monetize through coaching. So I have not made a single dollar from not giving value to another human being. That's how much we believe in self-improvement. That's how much I believe in getting a little bit better every day. I do have to hop in 2 minutes. I don't know if you can believe that we've already gone an hour, but I have another call at the top of the hour.
Oh, sure. No problem. Well, is there anything that you wanted to leave off?
No, I would say based on this conversation, have an open mind, because to the original thing we talked about, your perspective comes a lot from your environment and the things that you've been exposed to. And just because you haven't been exposed to it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right. And I think to leave everything off and to be able to just come to the realization that sometimes being realistic and having that open-mindedness adds a lot of value.
I would concur.
Where can these lovely people find you?
Our podcast is called Next Level University. We're on all the podcast platforms, YouTube. Just search that. We do an episode every day. So you'll either love us or get sick of us very quickly.
We'll find out. Well, listen, everybody, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Kevin, for coming on.
Of course.
And you know where to find the podcast. We're at Lost in the Groove Pod, everywhere and anywhere to make you crazy. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.